One day, my late political lecturer, while on police business, was waiting to board a light aircraft, police air wing, when he was requested to hold on because there was another passenger that was expected. Moments later, a man came in crutches, hardly able to walk, and my political lecturer recognized him immediately. And so did this man, and he waved at him. And passengers on this light aircraft were informed that there would be a stopover, because the light aircraft was in Mombasa. There would be a stopover in Manyani Maximum Security Prison. Now, the identity of this passenger who boarded late was Martin Shikuku. And my lecturer was very worried that Bwana Shikuku had recognized him and waved at him. The reason being, this was actually unfolding during the dark Moi days of detention without trial, which by the way has returned to Kenya. More on that a little later. He was worried that somebody would start asking, where is this man who is on detention without trial recognizing one of our senior police officers? Are they working together against the dictatorial government of Daniel Toroitich arap Moi? That was what was worrying him. Of course, they would not know that my political lecturer worked for years in Western Kenya, just before independence and shortly after independence. And naturally, in keeping the peace at that time, there was a lot of political work, and therefore there was no way Martin Shikuku would forget that face. And that small air-wing police aircraft took off, landed in Manyani, took off and landed in the final destination, which was Nairobi. Fortunately, there were no consequences for my political lecturer, although his juniors kept on being promoted over him all the time. He never got another promotion until his forced retirement. Years later, I had the privilege and the pleasure of meeting Martin Shikuku personally, and I had the opportunity to thank him for his service to the country called Kenya. Of course, at the tail end of his life, Martin Shikuku's character changed, but his contributions to the country called Kenya in earlier years will be forever remembered. The people's watchman, we used to call him, a very well-deserved name, because that's exactly what he was. Now, the reason why I've started my show today with that story is because many younger Kenyans may not understand a lot of the telltale signs emerging in our country that are clearly telling us that we are back in the dark days. No doubt about that. And of course, one of them was detention without trial. Being picked up, taken to an unknown destination, never heard of again, so that your family, your people have no idea where you are, whether you're alive or not, that kind of thing. And of course, it is a gross violation of human rights. There is no other way of describing it. Fast forward to 2023. Where is Maina Njenga? Where is he? And a host of others who have been held longer than the stipulated 24 hours within which the police must present them in a court of law and charge them or release them. For older Kenyans who are there, like yours truly, there is another telltale sign that we are back to the dark days that many may not recognize. And I will call it fabricated government stories that are not factual, but the only objective is something political. And there are many stories like this during the Moi days. But let me give you the most dramatic one. One day, Vice President Professor George Saitoti, came out and told us that somebody had tried to poison him. Actually, somebody had successfully poisoned him, but he survived. Of course, that story was pure fiction. And the whole idea was to shift attention away from the grisly murder of the then Foreign Affairs Cabinet Minister, Dr. John Robert Ouko. Now, that fabricated story did not quite work, because by that time Wakenya walikuwa wameanza kuchanuka. They had started waking up, and smelling these false, fake stories from a mile away. Now, fast forward to 2023, we have the story of the dramatic raid on the private residence of Jomo Kenyatta Jr. Of course, this is the son of former President Uhuru Kenyatta, named according to Kikuyu custom after his grandfather, the very first president and founding father of the nation, Mzee Jomo Kenyatta. President Mzee Jomo Kenyatta. Now sample the various government statements on this issue. Kithure Kindiki, the internal CS, talked about 23 guns. Later that number changed to 28. And much later, Defense CS Aden Duale told us that the guns being looked for, which some influential Kenyans are loaning to people, kufuatilia polisi risasi, Duale confirmed that these guns being looked for were indeed used to fire at the police. Now, if you put all those statements from government, official statements by people in government, do they make sense? First of all, there is the discrepancy in the figures. Figures are very important if you want to convince us that it is a serious investigation. Then there is the government narrative. Walikuwa wanafyatua risasi kwa polisi. There is no evidence on the ground. Apart from what the government is telling us, there is absolutely zilch evidence or any distant, faraway suggestion that that may be true. And therefore, you can't blame Kenyans, especially those of us who are older and were there, for suspecting that this must be a fabricated story. And that is not the only example. We have the example from Watamu in Kilifi County. Very beautiful place to go for a holiday. Magnificent. If ever you get a chance, visit Watamu. Now, the story from Watamu, captured in a police report, is beyond mind-blowing. First of all, this police report starts by telling us that the police, the DCI, were actually searching for this lady called Pauline Njoroge, a very close supporter and ally of former President Uhuru Kenyatta, and indeed an official, a very senior, powerful official in the Jubilee Party, Jeremiah Kioni faction. You know what's happening there in Jubilee Party. And then the same report proceeds to completely ignore that fact that it started with, and move on to other things. What they found after searching the vehicle in which they had managed to trace this said Pauline Njoroge. We never have enough time on these videos, so I'm afraid I have to refer you to my blog for full details of what I'm talking about here. Usually here, I only have time for the highlights. Please find time after the show today to visit kumekucha.blogspot.com na utapata uhondo wote. Now the really scary thing here that we should take note of is that it seems there are some people in the police, who are very determined to stick to doing things that can stand the test of time, and doing only things that can stand the test of time. Why am I saying that? Because some reporters from NTV managed to interview some of those police officers who told them that by the time Pauline Njoroge was arriving at the Watamu police station, there was absolutely no indication that the said items that were found in her possession had been found. There were no indications that any search had actually found those items, which suggests what these police officers were saying with Kizungu Mingi is that those things were planted. And of course the Kenya police has got a long history of nabbing people, and then when you arrive at the police station, some evidence magically appears, magically flashes from nowhere into your possession and enters the OB and is entered into evidence, so that at the end of the day, the poor person, the poor victim, is well and truly cooked. Yani anaiva kuiva. Oh boy. With charges in a court of law that will stick. Okay? Now all the Kenyans of course know this. This has been happening for decades. Ilikuwa imepotea kidogo, lakini inaonekana sasa imerudi. Tena imerudi na fujo. So I need to ask the question, is this yet another fabricated story with political objectives? Majority of Kenyans believe so. Now you know there was one day that President Daniel Toroitich arap Moi was heckled deep inside his home province of the Rift Valley. And it was reported in a section of the press. And Kenyans were shocked. Yeah, but it happened. Fast forward to 2023. Now those of us in the know, those of us following politics daily, hour to hour, know that Ruto has been heckled in various parts of the country. But of course, careful damage control and threats have ensured that this has never hit mainstream media. But it was just a matter of time, before it comes out clearly. Kenyans have seen news reports of those particular events where he has been heckled, and the background noise has been carefully edited out, carefully muted, so that when you see this thing in the mainstream media, you know everything was okay. There was no problem. Ruto addressed people and they cheered him and they clapped. He has massive support. That's what you see on mainstream media. But we all knew it was just a matter of time. And therefore over the weekend, in Vihiga and Kisii, it has leaked out that Ruto was heckled. Even as he tried to make his speech, people were screaming back, bei ya unga lazima ishuke. And they were screaming other things, which I'm afraid for now I cannot repeat on this channel. But of course you can Google and get those videos and hear for yourself, so that nobody says after this, that was Kumekucha propaganda, or that was Kumekucha giving us false reports. I want you to hear for yourself. Now, why is it terribly important for this government that those incidences and instances where Ruto is heckled, booed at, do not make it to mainstream media? I will tell you. It is because right now Ruto is selling the narrative to the international community and to those Kenyans ambao wamezubaa that he has massive support countrywide, and that what is happening in Kenya right now is a battle between two sides, both with huge following. Yeah, well, we all know that that is the farthest thing from the truth. Okay, that's really what it is. But this ongoing battle seems to be hottest between the two sides of the political divide, one that is followed by all Kenyans, supported and followed by all Kenyans, and the other one with very little, minute, insignificant support. The latest battlefront is what seems to have happened at the Nyalenda slums in Kisumu. Now, Minority Leader in Parliament Opiyo Wandayi of Azimio is calling what happened there a genocide. And Kenya Kwanza's pointman, Kimani Ichung'wah, has responded by saying that those remarks by Opiyo Wandayi are very unfortunate and of course false altogether. Now, in my opinion, I think Wandayi went overboard. I think that is too strong a word to use for what happened. However, the evidence emerging from the ground is that contrary to what Ichung'wah may want to convince us, something actually happened. And you see, there is evidence in the hospital, at the Russia hospital. I know you may not recognize that. At the Kisumu Referral Hospital, there is evidence. Yeah, there are people admitted there, many of them in critical condition. The ICU, or high dependency unit at the hospital, is full, and there are still patients who are waiting, demanding to get into the unit to survive. Therefore, something definitely happened. And guess what? So far, there is absolutely zero evidence, no reports, no sightings anywhere, that anybody alifiatulia polisi risasi. Yeah? And the final thing I'd like to mention on my show today, what is unfolding in this very new strange Kenya we're waking up to, is the fact that members of parliament aligned to the Azimio side have been hiding in parliament grounds, parliament buildings. Why? Because they fear to be arrested. You know, according to our laws, you cannot arrest anybody within the grounds of parliament. Okay? And of course, you know, in parliament, there are all the facilities. There is food. There is everything a human needs to survive. And therefore, that is the situation with the politicians, elected leaders, allied to the Azimio side. And that includes Minority Leader Opiyo Wandayi and many others. Of course, we know that there are many other Azimio leaders who have already vanished. Some of them have been arrested and presented in court and released by a court of law and promptly rearrested even before the bail paperwork has been completed. We know that. And so in a nutshell, we know what Ruto is doing to deal with Azimio. But then all this begs the question, a very simple question. To what end? What is the end game? What will finally happen? Yeah? Because from where I sit, what will finally happen will not benefit the Kenya Kwanza government. In fact, it is very much against the Kenya Kwanza government. Indeed, I would put it this way. What Ruto is doing to himself is much more effective against himself than anything which Raila Odinga or Azimio has come up with up to this particular point. But let's wait and see what happens. Very quickly before I go, today is the final day of the current very good crazy offer on my weekly intelligence briefings. And also it applies to anybody who's interested in my videos on how to survive a dead economy, of course, which has case studies. I'm sure you've been seeing details in front of your screens right now. You have just a few hours to take full advantage of this amazing offer. And of course, those WIB members whose membership has expired, you also have only a few hours to jump at this chance to make things right, and to ensure that you don't cripple me at this very critical time of fighting for a better Kenya. A time when I've even received threats. Therefore anything can happen at any time. But meanwhile, I am soldiering on. Until next time, this is Chris Kumekucha.